You're just wasting your time doing this.
One day I was skateboarding at the beach after work. The sunset was beautiful and everybody was smiling but me. I was sad because I was lonely, because I was heartbroken, and I was stressed, like really stressed. And at the time I had a great paying job, but believe me, no amount of money is worth all that stress. But then something absolutely miraculous happened. I found myself lying on the ground with my elbow bent the wrong way. For about 10 seconds, all the emotional pain that I was feeling all over my body had instantly disappeared, and the only pain that I was experiencing was condensed to just one spot. And I felt so incredibly light. Even though the physical pain was very intense, it was all the emotional pain was completely gone. And it took me several months to figure out just exactly what happened to me that day. My best friend gave me 2 books while I was recovering from surgery. One was The Secret and the other was The Power of Now. The only problem was that The Secret was saying how powerful thoughts are to manifest what you want and what you don't want. And The Power of Now was talking about how thoughts continuously want more than they want to have. And on top of that, he even says I'm not even my own thoughts. Now, I've always known that I hear my own thoughts. But this was more or less a matter of practicing being aware of the thoughts as if though they are not mine. And as I tried it, something occurred that changed me forever. I became aware of awareness itself. And so I decided to make a movie about it.
Well, some people will drive by and not even see me. They're not very aware. Other people will drive by and see me and say, oh, look at that. And not think nothing of it. They'll watch the butterfly fly across the road and see it. Other people won't see it.
So is it important to be that aware?
Oh, I think so.
Why?
Otherwise, your life is going by and you might as well be asleep because you're not living it.
I think that the concept that most people have when they think of the word aware is thinking really hard or trying really hard. And when I'm doing something, when I'm a human being, not a human thinking, not a human feeling, a human being, I feel that's when I'm most aware. And I think that if you do something that you're really passionate about, you just are there. And you're able to coexist and be in the world, and I think that's what true awareness is. You know, one aspect of my filmmaking that I really enjoy is time-lapse photography. And that's really an area where my thoughts totally disappear. And you know, time-lapse photography, you set up a camera and you shoot for 2 hours, and it condenses those 2 hours into 6 seconds. So I need to sometimes be next to my camera for those 2 hours to make sure that the exposure is set, the battery hasn't run out, a cloud hasn't come into my shot, a bird hasn't pooped on my lens. And in those moments, I've had times where 2 hours has felt to me like 6 seconds.
Yeah, there's a state of mind that I'm in when I'm working where time literally disappears. And my life kind of goes by like that. It's very, very enjoyable, and it's very much in the present. And when I'm in the present and in that creative state, there's kind of a letting go that happens, just like falling into something where you're being caught. You know, it's just a total trust kind of experience. I do appreciate being able to devote myself as much as I can to being in that zone, because it is kind of a zone. It's sort of like jumping off a cliff and you're just suspended in the air while you're working. It's total freedom.
.000 is perfect. I try to be in the .04 range on the starting line if I can. A lot of guys struggle with it because they're not focused. Their head's not clear. They're worried about their sponsors, or they're worried about, you know, an autograph signing, and that's cool and all, but you really, when it's on race day, you've got to be on point at all times. And you can actually kind of almost anticipate that light coming on, and you let go of the brake, mash the gas, and you're gone. You can remember, like, hey, I saw that guy. I saw that guy on the stand, in the stands. You know, you can just feel it. You can sense it. You can see it. You're just on total sensory overload, and you have to be able to harness all of that. You're very in the moment.
What's your word? In the moment?
I'd say in the moment, just because you know, this car is so powerful. It's the quickest accelerating thing on the planet, on land. You just covered a quarter of a mile in 4 seconds at over 300 miles an hour. I mean, you feel like you're superhero. You know, you are king of the world. You just conquered this bad beast that's trying to hurt you, and that's what it's all about for me.
Ella Fitzgerald was singing a song and forgot the words, and just started doing almost like following the trumpet line. And it was so well received that they thought it was some new form of jazz just came about. So she just took it and ran with it. Ella had no basis of scatting. There was no such thing as that. So she made something up out of nothing. So if she can make it up out of nothing, I have to make it up out of what Tammy's inspired to do at that particular moment in the phrasing and the piece of that song. And I love it. You can, and it's so liberating. There's no rules.
I think it has a lot to do with the difference between, you know, knowing something and being aware of something. I think maybe awareness is always going on, you know, whether you know something or you don't know, you know, awareness is just, you know, you're taking it all in at once.
I had never thought of awareness as a general, like a whole thing. My thought had always been like personal awareness. I have awareness, you have awareness, he has awareness. 3 separate, completely different things.
One of the things I noticed in my research many years ago is that people almost never notice awareness itself. Most people are not conscious of awareness. So people think in terms of awareness of or consciousness of. And the move where people shift their focus towards consciousness itself and towards awareness itself is an amazing and unusual move.
Yeah, it's you know, just being aware of awareness. It's sort of difficult to contemplate. Because society, I guess as humans, it's natural to label things. And so by doing that, we're, you know, aware of this or aware of that. But just the fact of awareness is, I don't know, it's just there.
If you were to be like almost like aware at all states of your life, at all waking hours, like, what would that be like? You know, would you just be walking around like Gandhi, like so just happy to be alive and in the moment? I don't know. Yeah, that's it's a trip. It's definitely, it's good to go back to that, and I think it's important to, you know that every day, you know, or, you know, more than just once a day, you know, constantly coming back to that awareness. I think that will just help with everything in life, Everything will just start rolling. When we go back to that, all the way back, and we're just aware, anything can happen. There's no limits at all. It's limitless. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like trying to describe color to a blind person, or convincing a deep-sea fish this concept of water. It's used in so many different ways, yet nobody really talks about it during their lifetime.
I've never really thought of awareness because I know that I am.
In those first few months after you were born and you were starting to take in an awareness of the external world, you don't necessarily have a sense of a me whom this experience is happening to, as your five senses continuously stream information to you. But it is at this point in time when you don't have labels and concepts to develop a thought about that information. I would even go as far to say that in this rare moment of thoughtless awareness, awareness itself is being you.
Since I've been in practice, which has been 4 years now, I was trying to do the math in my head a couple of weeks ago. I think I've delivered probably about another 500 babies. It's the coolest thing. I always say I have the coolest job in the world. I don't know at what point a spirit enters or an awareness enters. I don't know. But I know that once those cells start to divide, this whole process of life and growth it's phenomenal. It's bigger than anything you could ever imagine. The orchestration of signals and hormones and genes that put together this human being is phenomenal. I don't think a baby's necessarily aware of being in the womb. I don't know for sure. Why we don't have memories of that, I can't explain. But a lot of times that first memory of something is around a year of age. I don't know if that's my first awareness, but as an adult or as a young child, that's my first memory.
When a mother reaches down, scoops up a baby into the air, something very peculiar is occurring. From the viewpoint of the infant, it's as if though the entire room is shifting in space according to their particular perspective. At about 12 weeks old, she still has no idea that there's bottoms to her feet and a top to her head. And she has yet to discover that she has a back, let alone even the comprehension to understand that somewhere she ends and is separate from her environment. Once you have become aware of yourself, you move further into establishing the identity of that self.
I'm Ashley Summerfield.
Wait, say it right now.
I'm Ashley Summerfield.
How old are you?
I'm 3.
Here is an example of Ashley projecting her sense of self into a future moment.
Don't stop to me. I'm going to bonk your head.
Hey, Ashley.
What?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Does your sister have a sister?
Yes.
Who? Who's your sister's sister?
I'm Cole. They're both Coles. They're both.
Nicole is your sister?
Yes.
But does Nicole have a sister?
Yes.
Who?
Nicole. And a friend.
Who is Nicole's sister?
Friend. Maya.
No, that's her friend, but what about her sister? Does Nicole have a sister?
Uh-uh.
No?
No.
What about you? What's so very interesting here is that Ashley is able to identify with her name, the concept of her age, and her sense of self affecting a future moment. But she is not yet wrapped up in the thoughts of how other people identify with her. Once we are able to make that final switch to see how the world identifies with us, from that moment forward, we enter a whole new paradigm shift of constantly being aware of something and how we identify with it. I sat down with two high school seniors, Sean and Ren, and I was asking them at one point, what do you think are the strongest influences for a young person establishing their identity?
Culture. It's there. It's always there, and something's always pressuring you to be a certain way. And you might not be like that. My dog doesn't care about whether or not he doesn't have this idea of who he wants to be, but this is who he is, and there's that constant dichotomy. He's just there. And that's because there's no dog culture ramming down his throat. You should do your hair a little differently and maybe wear a tie, because that looks really indie, and that's awesome.
People, call upon me as the magic man, I can't even go to a friend's barbecue without saying, hey, magic man, do a card trick. I always have to be that guy. I always have to be prepared. I can't let people down. It hurts my business. If I'm not on the job. I'm not working. I'm not going to show you a card trick. Then I'm not the nice guy.
I was born into the sport of drag racing. My father drove a funny car from 1968 to 1986. I've been told my entire life that driving a race car is what I was meant to do, while other kids wanted to be fighter pilots or astronauts. I've known that driving a race car is what I was going to do with my life.
But almost every story, every screenplay, every story period is a journey for that character. They start out at point A and they end up at point Z, a changed person. They have changed perceptions. They've gone through any number of obstacles that make them now a different person.
I think that a lot of people maybe have these ideas like, oh, dude, Charlie's really cool, or Chris is really cool, Angela, I love the way her mannerisms are, and I think they try to adopt those things, and it's just like, it's like they're constantly trying to take shapes and put them into something that doesn't fit.
And the problems come when you are living or acting in a way that you think you should be. And that's the false, what they call the false self. It comes from many things. It comes from, abusive relationships. It comes from ways that you were brought up. It comes from, the economic class you were born into, where you were raised, all of those things. And so you you don't know any better, so you imitate the people around you.
So I think, when I watch these guys, like I'm almost kind of disappointed or sad for them, like I get to meet my heroes and I realize, are they happy? Like, are they really aware of life really, or is it just their work?
Once you have set up your identity and established a separation from the world, at the same time you also set yourself up to experience suffering through the idea that something was taken from you.
And it happens often for people through really dramatic circumstances where they lose a loved one, or they're in a car crash, or something happens where they're shocked into, wow, life is not what I thought it was, and we start to see this emptiness quality of what life is.
all I can say for sure is that it's best to make sure and love everyone the best you can while you're here, because you never know. You'll be alive tomorrow, get hit by a car or struck by lightning or whatever. So I find it best to just live every day telling everyone you love them and acting like it's your last day.
Every man who's ever walked alone never know when he's coming home. All the poets lived throughout the ages, and all those pens moved across the pages. And in these men, when love was real love,
Arrowhead Mountain Spring Water.
conceived a fairy tale or some lullaby. All the love songs throughout our history seem to fit her so perfectly.
Yeah, I was on a barge here. We went down, and my dog Chabasco came on with me. I was using the phone and stuff, and my friend was with me, and then he noticed that she was eating the rat poison in this tray, and we tried to stop her, but it was a little too late, and she already ate it all. And we tried getting her to puke by sticking my finger down her throat and stuff, but we couldn't get her to puke. And then when I got up in the morning, and the vet's open like at 9 or 10, and then I went over there, and then they said that since she slept all night with it in her, that it probably isn't very good, and there isn't much you can do unless you got tons of money. And for the first couple days, she might seem all right, the vet said, but then all of a sudden she'll start coughing, and she'll get purple spots on her gums, and blood will just start filling up her chest and all over the place inside of her, and she'll die from that. So pretty much I've just been give her the pills and have fun and go play around and tell her I love her, and it's kind of cool. At least I got time to play with her.
And I swear we're all out there falling for the same someone. Yeah, I swear we're all out there and we're falling for the same someone.
I was gonna take her up to the mountains and bury her up there, and she's starting to get old, and I knew one day that she's gonna pass away anyways. And of course, you wish her that it'd be around forever, but that just ain't the way it is.
One of the amazing things about living in a world full of constant change is these moments when things seem to be taken away from us. But it is in those moments when we finally come all the way back to ourself, and we can sense some type of an emptiness quality which is always there in the background.
I'm Sally McSpadden, and I'm the widow of Mike McSpadden. He passed away in September of last year, 4 days after his birthday. And he didn't quite expect to get to 55. He thought that he was going to die at 54. And I hadn't realised that that's how he felt. I thought that, but he told me a couple of days after his birthday, wow, I'm here. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I reached 55. And I said, I don't understand. He said, I always thought that I would die at 54. I thought, wow, how did you feel that way? And he just said, that's just what I thought, that I was going to die at 54. So, wow, I'm here at 55. And 4 days later, he passed away. So,
Describe it to a 10-year-old, that feeling inside of you.
Emptiness. I felt a great emptiness, that part of, I guess I did feel that part of myself had died, that I was incomplete without him. I recognized that I was not really sure of who I am as an individual without the other half of the partnership. So just realizing what it is that makes me happy and what I need to get through a day, and what makes me happy, I guess. That's really been the hard thing.
To me, if this is all an illusion, it hurts when your heart's broken. It hurts. Like, I am in pain. I'm feeling that experience. And you can tell me that's an illusion, but I'm experiencing it completely in a very full body way. And so in the Buddhist traditions, there's what's called emptiness, energy, and form. So there's 3 dimensions of existence, and that the form dimension is impermanent, that it is changing continually, and everything that we see in the form dimension is showing that to us over and over and over again. Relationships change, the trees decompose and create compost for new life. Everything is in this cycle. The sun rises and sets. But there is a quality that's unchanging. There is something that is remaining forever, and that is this emptiness quality.
Emptiness, heartbreak, people want to fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on?
Well, what's really going on is they were very attached to this person, and this person took up a lot of their time, a lot of their energy, and a lot of their thoughts. And so when that person leaves, it feels like emptiness, because it's like a part of them that's gone, and so they want to fill that void.
This emptiness that we speak of, if you get into it, it is the ultimate state of awareness. Before, in Taoism, there's the great Tao, there's the great emptiness before all things, before yin and yang polarize and split. And when yin and yang split, we create movement, and then there's charge and life. You call it the breath of God, everything starts going. But at the beginning, it's just emptiness. So that place, that very powerful place of emptiness, is the beginning, it's the alpha omega of all existence. So when we talk about finding awareness, and when we talk about getting into the essence of who we are, in that emptiness is everything. Everything, every kernel of every existence, the hologram for all creation, is born out of that emptiness. So it's an incredible place to be, so long as you wake up to it.
This waking up to the emptiness that we sense inside is also another way for referring to becoming more self-aware.
So everything is very interrelated. So that's why when we're working with people and trying to get them from illness to wellness, that they have to do it body, soul, and mind. And part of that is an awareness of who they are, first of all, and who they really are, not who they think they are or who they've been labeled or whatever their environment has brought them to at that point in their lives. But once they realize who they are and that awareness, then they can reach another level.
I've gotten caught on camera being drunk and just like talking about stuff, and I'm like listening to myself going, that stuff's like really in there. I'm like, some of it doesn't make sense, but like there's that part of me that like knows, I'm like, God, dude, what I'm talking about, that's like totally the truth. This is stuff that I don't tell people,
So let me ask you something. I'm doing a documentary about awareness.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the more aware you become of yourself, you improve.
Actually, I have a whole spiel about self-awareness, and it's something, and I don't know how this sounds, but I feel like I was really, really blessed at like kind of like a younger age with like I still remember exactly when I kind of knew who James was. I was sitting, I used to always like sit on my bed before I go to sleep and stare at the ceiling. And I remember it all started with like, I was really terribly self-conscious. And I remember thinking, you know what? It was that one thought I was like, you know what? When I graduate from high school and I do all this and all that shit they're saying and all that stuff they're making fun of me about, it's not going to matter anymore. And so all of a sudden, it was like I was free to just be me. And so I was just like, fuck it. You know what? If you don't like me, go fuck yourself. And just kind of took on that attitude. And like, that was 9th grade. I feel like 9th grade was like one of my favorite years just because like I was like, I'm James Kennedy. I know who I am. And kind of been that way ever since.
Yeah, so the difference to me between self-conscious and self-aware is first that, you know, being self-conscious should be approached with a lot of compassion because it's not a person that wants to go around worried or highly anxious. You know, that's usually there for a reason, and that's a mechanism they repeat to protect themselves. But on the flip side, there is that self-awareness where one would recognize where their anxiety lies and then also have a focus in the world around them, have a relationship with what's going on so that they can move forward.
Now here you are this performer. You're on stage and you're owning it. Would you say that went all the way back to that switch at 9th grade?
Totally. I would say that like the awareness in that moment actually changed like everything, like including, you know, playing up on stage. It was that comfort and knowing how far I could go with myself. The advantage is that I get to look out and see the world, whereas the other guy's like just concentrating on how the world sees them.
It leads me back to my mission, and my mission really is, it's not necessarily, yes, the goal is to find people love and dating and everything and find people dates, but ultimately underlying, it's really themselves. I feel like I'm more of an inner game or self-awareness coach because that, when you have that unwavering belief in yourself and that awareness, that's where you're gonna have success in your career, success in dating and love, in life in general. And it's kind of like, that's the bigger picture. The dating and the love, that's kind of like, you know, the cherry on top, but the bigger picture really is themselves and the awareness of themselves and the complete and fullness of themselves.
For the most part, as a teacher of martial arts, the very fact that they're walking into my school says that they have an interest in setting foot on this path. So I can be, and I'm essentially given the mandate by my students to be much more demanding than the average person can be. I don't say you should stop smoking. I say you will stop smoking or I won't teach you. Because I'm not going to waste my time. It's difficult to teach this art to somebody. And if they don't have the self-awareness and the self-importance to stop destroying themselves while I'm trying to improve them, what is the point of us having an interaction as a student and a teacher? So I sort of wish that other people had the same mandate because I think a lot of people would just wake up.
What we found is that when a human being can align themselves and be in balance with a prey animal, such as a horse, any equine, and they get that partnership, that something about that metaphysical process of getting in balance and having your body in rhythm and the correct alignment changes something in that person's heart. They not only retrain themselves to use their bodies differently, they become more compassionate and a little more understanding.
Being you is something that you know, you really know. You do know who you are, but it's also hidden. Like you have to uncover it.
And sometimes it was very simple things that I would end up doing that made me happy. Cooking a meal for friends, or cleaning the car, cleaning the house, spending time with the cats, and gardening. You know, I didn't have very much dirt to play with, but I've got a few pots and things, so that brought me pleasure, going off to the garden centres and things like that. So
you're finding yourself.
Yes. Yeah, finding myself was a pleasure. It made me happy, and once I realised that I was capable of making myself happy, it was that feeling of liberation.
Well, self-awareness is just really about knowing how you feel, not how someone else would want you to feel.
I thought it was really cool to find out that a dating coach and a horse whisperer and a martial arts teacher all would take their students and actually bring them back to self-awareness first before they teach their students new skills. But the downside to developing your personal self-awareness is that if there's any kind of a suffering going on inside of you that you've been hiding, it will finally come to the surface and magnify, and thus that could lead to a fear or a dislike of working on becoming more self-aware. This I believe to be the main reason why so many people remain mediocre in their talents and abilities. But for those few who are ready and willing to truly assess their current state of unhappiness, that moment is when they begin on a new path to uncovering why suffering occurs inside of themselves.
So when someone is brokenhearted, when someone has really been compromised in an emotional sense and they feel devastated and lost and empty and hollow and just down on the ground, suffering, great, great. Stay there and find who is left at the bottom of the pool.
The suffering that we experience because of our conditioned idea of self, our preferences, like you were talking about, we suffer mostly from that because we're able to pick and choose. We suffer. So of course our main emphasis is to accept everything as it is. And that's how you can free yourself.
I had a friend whose child died when the child was 3. And she said, you know, there's a difference between suffering and grief. You know, you can continue to hold suffering. You can continue to have a certain outlook that the world is against you, nobody makes money in that particular area, I'm the only one whose child died, why did this happen to me? These are all ways that you can hold suffering. Grieving is different. You know, grieving is being present with sorrow. Grieving is being present with what you were just dealt. And at the moment that you realize that you're in a bad situation, then oftentimes the anger comes. And after the anger comes the tears. That's the way we work, you know, and after that comes acceptance. But, you know, these are all levels of awareness.
The story of Wa's friend who lost her child and experienced tremendous grief provides a great example of the ability to separate the emotion of grief from what is often confused with suffering. The difference is that grief is an emotion that many intelligent mammals experience in life, whereas suffering is found within the human ability to rationalize that something should not have occurred, and then to think about it over and over and relive the emotion of grief, even though the actual circumstance has long since passed.
You know, our ability to think is just a natural gift. It's a beautiful gift that we were given. It has allowed us to create so many amazing things and to evolve and design, and art uses thinking. All these miraculous things come from thinking. But what's happened is that thinking has become so dominant that in its dominance it's become dysfunctional. As in, you think all day, you go to lay down at night, and instead of falling asleep, you roll around in bed thinking.
I can get 20 people in a row that tell me they love that board. I get one negative phone call, I dwell on it.
These voices inside my head, which were, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not judging myself. Why didn't I do this? I should have done this.
So being like, oh man, my pants are short. Oh, I don't like my shoes. My hair looks weird. Oh, there's something on my face.
There's no boundary in the mind. Mind is like a free bird. So that's a nature of mind. Right now, our mind is sort of like wrapped up in our own judgment or our own confusions.
Instead of us being completely carried away with each one and each thought arises, we're like, yeah, that's true, that's totally true, that's true about me, that's true about you, and we just go for it completely. And people are so afraid about being brainwashed or conditioned, but we fall for every single thought that goes through our mind. Every single one, we're behind it 150%, no matter. But where did it come from?
Our mind is like a crazy monkey. It jumps everywhere. It's not stable. It's like a wild horse.
If I had a camera that had the ability to capture people's thoughts, this is what I think that it might sound like.
Then I go to the barber, and I was going to get it cut off, and my barber, Smothers Brothers down here, he says, oh my God, don't do that. We've got this wonderful Ahab beard. You see, it couldn't be Lincoln. Well, the little girl told Lincoln, you ought to grow a beard, you're so ugly. Well, I mean, that's a pretty good idea. But then the Pequod, you know Ahab, the man that fought the whale. Okay, the Pequod was my boat.
Sorry. I get my brain all confused and I just go off on a whole other different tangent.
It looked like somebody had taken grape jelly and just went and splattered it because
every time it went over a bump, it would hit the wheel, so it would make this funny sound.
it's like purple and gross and it's very bizarre. And I was like, oh my God. And then there was like,
I'll come back to that.
Have you thought about going paparazzi?
Hey, Sam?
That's where the money is, man.
That's cool. That's way cool.
You're just wasting your time doing this.
But the point is that
Couple pictures of Britney Spears with somebody, there comes the paycheck.
Yeah, I dig it. I completely dig it.
my mind's all over the place.
Sorry, I'm easily distracted.
Practice, practice, practice.
Your left brain, negative mind, clean it out, right mind.
Because it can always be worse or it can always be better.
You'd end up being a happy, distracted person or a happy, attentive person.
Little by little by little by little. And
Conscious, is that conscious? La-da-da-da-da. Get off all these tangents.
who is texting? Sorry, can I swear?
It's not what you think.
You were recording me on that? Oh, shoot.
The idea with imaginary numbers is
Have you ever thought about thinking about thoughts?
I'm aware of thinking constantly, and I often wonder, does everybody else do what I do? Do they think about trivia like I do? Because I can expound on that and go further and further into thinking to where it drives me nuts, and I have to just stop and think on just positive things, not just things that are entering my head out of nowhere.
If anyone could enter my head, it would blow their mind.
I think it's very intriguing how we all hear thoughts and we know they're there, and sometimes they're very productive and sometimes they're very self-destructive. It's also so interesting to see habitual, reoccurring thoughts that could continue on in a pattern for years, yet the whole time we're fully aware that those thoughts are reoccurring over and over and over.
Has any girl just totally broken your heart? Have you ever had that? I've been through that.
Yeah,
Yeah, serious heartbreak.
I have been through that actually. I try to forget about it.
But how do you forget about it? It's like your mind keeps going.
No, you don't. You really don't get over it. You don't get away from it, actually, ever. Never.
Ronald provides a great example of someone who has spent a lifetime thinking the same thoughts over and over, and he is aware of it. But he never makes the conscious decision to stop that thought pattern.
I don't think it's possible I don't think it's a possibility to think of nothing, of having a minute where you're just not thinking of anything or nothing for even up to a minute. It's not possible.
So your question or your example of the man that meditates and is there with, what do you say, in his thoughts, with his thoughts?
To get to a point where thoughts cease.
Oh, yes, thoughts cease. I can't even imagine that.
Right?
I'm always thinking about something. That would be very difficult. It'd be a very difficult thing to be able to quiet your mind.
Is it possible to not think thoughts?
Yes, of course. We become intuitively aware. It's awareness. Intuition is awareness. It intuits. It does not function on the level of a mind, because mind uses concepts and ideas. Intuition is direct perception and awareness of a presence. So there is no thought at that moment.
So as I traveled through Oregon, I had to stop at the university and meet with the head of psychology to find out what exactly is a thought.
My name is Helen Neville, and I am a professor at the University of Oregon, and I am the head of the Brain Development Lab here. And when we put people in the MRI machine, we can look at their gray matter, the structure of their brain, and the connections, the white matter. But more than that, we can see what parts of the brain are active when I have a particular kind of a thought. When the neurons are really busy, the neurons are the cells in the brain, there's an automatic influx of oxygen there. And so the ratio of oxygenated to deoxygenated blood in your brain shifts a little bit, and that's what we image. Yeah, so thoughts are real. You can touch them. You can see them.
Thoughts are emotion, and they are frequency. All emotion is a frequency. I have that in my own belief system.
They arise out of space, out of just complete nothingness. Like, where do they come from? If you were to look into your mind, where do your thoughts come from? They come from nowhere. And they arise, and then where do they go? They go right back into nothing, into nowhere.
Wait a second. How can thoughts be a physical something, yet they come out of nothing? Here is an optical illusion of which I think offers a nice visual representation of how it is that thoughts occur. Keep a steady focus on the crosshairs in the middle of the screen. Gradually, you will see 13 purple dots in a circle and one green dot traveling in a clockwise direction. If your eye shifts to the purple dots, you will quickly lose track of the green dot, but as soon as you bring your focus back to the crosshairs, you will see the green dot reappear again. The more concentrated you are with focusing steady on the center of the screen, you will actually notice that the green dot begins to erase the purple dots. This is a great example for showing how when we become completely engrossed in thought, that we become less and less aware of our external surroundings.
We do it when we're driving in a car. You're driving in a car, and like for 5 minutes, all of a sudden, you're at your exit and you don't know how you got there.
It's almost like if you overthink things, you lose the ability to be aware.
I don't know what happens, but it does happen. It's all of a sudden, boom, you're at the next exit and you don't remember you're functioning, but yeah, I guess I don't know.
All of a sudden, miles have gone by and I maybe can't even recall what the terrain looked like or what mountain I climbed or whatever it was, but all of a sudden I'm in this next place But if I go back and run that same trail, instead of recognizing the trail, I'll recognize or remember the thoughts that I had going through there.
And you keep finding yourself going down these thought trains all over the place, just wondering, wow, you know, I just spent 5 minutes just working my way through some problem that just popped up in my head that was completely irrelevant. Now I'm thinking about something else. How did I even get here?
The most interesting thing here is that the green dot doesn't exist anywhere on the screen in front of you.
Where do they come from? If you were to look into your mind, where do your thoughts come from? They come from nowhere.
The photoreceptors in your retina are sending electrical signals to the neurons within your brain. So this is a physical process. Even though the green dot never appears on the screen, it does have some sort of a tangible existence within your brain. Similarly, if we were to look inside your brain, we would never find your actual name.
My name is Emerson, and I'm a dancer.
But when you think of your name,
My name is Barb Powell.
that thought does take some form of an existence. So then, a thought is a form which is measurable and constantly changing.
Thoughts can get truth. You can't think your way into happiness. You can't think your way into love. You can't, and this is why it's great when people say, I'm working on a relationship, and all they're doing is using thoughts. No, that's working the other way in the relationship.
As a chess player, I beat a guy pretty effortlessly, and he was a pretty strong player, but I hadn't studied, and I was trying to figure out, well, what's different? How could I not study chess and actually be better? And what I realized was I was so present at the chessboard. I was so aware. It was amazing because I had nothing going on in my head that was blocking what was taking place. Only now, looking back, I realized the calmer I became, and as I started to get into this and study spiritual teaching, did I realize it was helping my chess by not thinking, which was the opposite of what I previously had thought, right? More mind. Oh, I'm not thinking hard enough. That's it. And that doesn't work. But you have to see that. It's beyond, it doesn't involve thought. So take away all thought, and what you have left is what we're talking about.
Sometimes I'll ask people if they ever experienced moments of no thought, and they'll describe some when they're driving, and then they all of a sudden they're home, and they'll say, yeah, I had no thoughts.
We do it when we're driving in a car. You're driving in a car, and like for 5 minutes, all of a sudden you're at your exit and you don't know how you got there, and there wasn't a single thought.
But to me, it seems like they were actually lost in thought. What do you think of that example?
Beautiful example. Unfortunately, they found out most accident occurs because of this lack of awareness of driving, of not being present on what we are doing.
But how did they get there? Was it habit. Subconscious?
Yes, it is. Instinct. It's like driving a car. You don't think about changing, now I push the brake. It's automatic. We may say in the automatic pilot, unconscious.
Really, you were thinking about other things.
So I think that there's a time and a place where everything shuts off if we can learn how to get there. In tying my shoes or doing things automatically, when I'm doing that, I believe I'm still thinking other things. So that's tough. I'd have to think about that for a little bit. That's a great question. Can I stop thinking? I'm going to say no. The question is no.
It's very interesting because when you're emptying the thoughts, if you try to empty it, that won't happen. You just have more thoughts. What you do is actually you breathe and you stay present and you allow the thoughts to come and you allow the thoughts to go. And then in between that, certainly there are moments where there are no thoughts.
I remember when I was younger going to these mountain peaks and I would look up at these mountains and go, and there'd be a moment of no thought, just like a breathless moment, just like And then thought would come back in, wow, those mountains are beautiful. Hey, did you see that? Look at how beautiful those mountains are. They got to be 10,000 feet high possibly. I don't know, what do you think? I mean, then there's all the thought around what those mountains were, but initially there was a space of no thought. When I looked up at that majestic view, it was so beautiful, it created this moment of no thought, just pure awareness of that, what I was looking at. And then thought comes streaming back in to classify it, judge it good or bad, you know, talk to other minds about it or other people about it, and really diminish how this awe-inspiring moment down to something that's quantifiable. We can even put in our notebook, our journal, I saw a 10,000-foot peak today. It was beautiful. And I also ate some pizza, and I had some, you know, really diminishing the grandness, the awe-inspiring spectacle of those mountains.
Even more ironic is this whole section within this documentary getting you to think about thoughtlessness. But the one story that I feel most people would be able to relate to was with James Day talking through the moment when his race car caught on fire and thinking thoughts could have potentially brought about the end of his life.
I remember the one run we made. And, you know, I stood on the gas and the car was shaking and moving around, and I got the car back under control, and I was shooting down through there, and I was probably running 280 miles an hour, and it blew the blower off. And thing was on fire, and I was sliding around in my own oil. So I went to hit the parachutes, and the parachutes failed. You know, so I got on the brakes, and I turned the fuel pump off, and I clipped one of the timing blocks, and it folded the body underneath and cut the left front tire down. And the car was dragging me hard to the left wall, and I was on the brakes. I mean, just as hard as I could go, man. It wasn't going to come back, you know. And the things, you know, fire's bouncing off your helmet, and you just, it's that fight or flight, and you got to stay with it, you know, because you know you got to get this thing stopped so you can get out, you know. So I was on the brakes as hard as this thing would go, and I burnt the brakes off of it, and I finally got the thing down there to a stop, and I jumped out the roof hatch and picked the body up, and the safety safari was there, and they're spraying water on me, and they're spraying water on the car, and you know, you just go back and you go, holy cow, you know.
Do you think during that time you actually didn't think thoughts?
It's a reaction. Everything you do is a reaction to what the car is doing on there. You're traveling at such high speeds that if you think about something, the car will be gone before you ever know it.
Something very important to point out here is the difference between thinking a thought is your mind and sensory perception, which is awareness beyond thought.
A lot of information was getting in only about the task, only about his performance. What he was smelling, what he was paying attention to, what he was visually hearing, smelling the rubber tires, you know. I mean, he was paying attention to everything about his performance, and he got all the information relevant to his performance. All came in. And that's what he's able to talk about. And that's all he was able to talk about, because he wasn't thinking about the bills and the girlfriend.
I think possibly the conscious self, a conscious part of your body, stops trying to analyze what's happening and just absorbs all of it, sort of just in record and try to work later. And I think at that point, people work in really the subconscious level, which is just very reactionary, and I would say very fast. If you can react, if you know, I think in any kind of fire, fight, things like that, if you react at the subconscious level, it's much faster because you're really not thinking about it, you're doing.
And so what happens is when the race car driver is in that place and he's got, you know, all cylinders firing and it's requiring all of his attention and intention, the noise goes away because, yes, certain things he's just got, I mean, he doesn't have to think pop in clutch. It's just happening, right? Because he's burned that in. But because he's so dialed into that present moment, there is no room for the noise. Now, that being said, the noise is there in perpetuity. And I would argue that the race car driver is at his finest moment when he's not hearing the noise, because that's as close as he's going to be to that enlightenment. He happened to find it race car driving. Some person does it jumping out of a plane. Some other person does it doing kung fu.
As soon as I make a single contact or more on my opponent, whether it be weapon to weapon or hand to weapon or weapon to hand, The information I'm getting back from that is so rapid infusion that I'm really not thinking. It's like a head-up display in a jet aircraft. It's coming at me so quickly that it's just becoming part of my decision-making process. I don't have an opportunity, nor do I need an opportunity to stop and think about it. It isn't on that level.
And so every human being experiences them. They may not have a teaching in place that allows them to know the value of that allows them to harness those moments of no thought for their own, personal growth, so they can withdraw energy from their thinking and live a more balanced, interactive life. But without doubt, every human being has those moments of no thought.
If we are able to be fully aware within moments of no thought, then what exactly happens to awareness when you die?
501 and 526, here they come. The race began normally. Hank's boat is on the right, but then suddenly something went wrong.
As I'm seeing the people on the shore, and I don't feel my parachute open up. And I'm saying I'm starting to rotate. I'm saying, my parachute's not open. I'm going to go in on my head. And I don't think I'm going to make it, man. And that's what happened. Then out I went. Rescue boat came. I saw the video.
We have no idea what the situation is. We won't venture a guess.
I had no vitals then. Got me to the shore, no vitals. Tried to start my heart. It kept on starting and then stopping and starting and stopping. Did that all the way for 20 minutes to the hospital. I just remember being above the ambulance at one point in time and looking down at Doug, the paramedic guy I knew, pumping on my heart, trying to start it.
How do you know you're dreaming or not dreaming? How are you aware of that? You can't move.
I don't know. I remember when I woke up, though, that's what I thought about. I mean, so one point in time, that's what I remember. Now I know I didn't have that dream before, so I don't know.
People search too hard and don't just let it come and happen. I also believe in fate, that everything happens for a reason. I don't know how to explain it, what happens in life, why we end up where we end up. Because I was never aware that when I was a kid that I was going to really end up being a horse trainer, or be living out here with all of this nature around. So events happen.
Away in September of last year, 4 days after his birthday. He didn't quite expect to get to 55. He thought that he was going to die at 54.
The awareness itself, if you think about it, if you become fully aware, essentially, is it possible that's what we are, is awareness?
As a spiritual being of energy, I would think awareness is a part of it, personally. Probably the biggest part. Maybe it's when we become truly aware that we've accomplished what we are here to accomplish.
The very first time I saw someone pass away, I was 19 years old, and it was a patient of mine, and she died. And I had been talking to her 5 minutes earlier, and her family was there, and she was doing fine, and she died. And I remember I was so wrapped up in, I'm going to go through a code, and I don't want to fail, and I'm trying to remember everything that I've been taught about what to do in this life and death situation, that when the doctor finally said, call it, everybody else knew what that meant. They'd been through it 100 times, and everybody did, respectfully, but just turned around and walked away. They knew that was coming, and I didn't. And I looked around like, what is everybody doing? And call it. And it was all hitting me all at once. And I remember I looked at the patient, and then I realized why everybody was doing that. It was so clear. It was so clear if you just looked at the human, that what was left was 150 pounds of meat. We're a big water bag. And our passion and the conversations that I had with her and her fears and the love she showed for her family and all that was gone. What happens to the spark? What happens to the awareness? This is one of the places in my life where I struggle. I have no scientific proof. I have no data. I don't even have any experience that's tangible that I can say led me to this belief. I just feel and always have felt that can't die. That goes back out somewhere into the universe, and it's a perpetual kind of thing. Does it become a tree or a bug or a rat? I don't know.
When Doug was here, we were aware. He was here. He was aware of us. But when he died, it's like asking, do you know if his awareness died with him? And no, I don't know. And I'm not really sure how you could know.
I think awareness is perishable. If it is located in the brain, you're constantly, those neurons are firing, and because those neurons are firing, that's awareness. Once that stops happening, where does that go?
I don't think that you can have a tangible example of awareness, dying. But in the same way, I don't know how there's a tangible, example of awareness in general,
As you're growing up and changing, something knows that. And then sometimes you think thoughts that you like or thoughts that you don't like, and something is hearing those. Right?
Right.
What is that something? How do you know anything? What's the title of the documentary?
Yeah.
What is the it that produces something in that nothingness?
Myself.
What is yourself?
My...
Who are you?
That's such a complex question.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Can your thoughts be you if they change?
Well, your thoughts are you, because you would be thinking them. I mean... Well, your thoughts are you. Because you would be thinking them.
Have you ever thought about how we are all like potato chips? There's such a wide variety of flavors and shapes and sizes. Some are fun, some are healthy, some are mysterious. But what is it that makes them different? Well, they're ingredients. It's their particular order of the amount of all the spices and stuff that make each one their own flavor. Then someone slaps a brand name on it, sends in the trademark paperwork, and calls it their own. But did they actually invent the oil and salt and spices that went into making that particular chip? No. They simply borrow from what is already existing long before the recipe was ever invented. So what about thoughts? We all feel that we are our particular combination of thoughts. Then we slap our name on the outside and call it me. This is what makes us all separate, right? But hey, wait a second. If you come all the way back to the first ingredient, all you end up with is potato. They're all potato. And what about all those other ingredients? Let's not forget that they are things that you can measure, right? So then how can it be that if you can hear, see, and measure your own thoughts, then who is the you that's doing all the measuring? Let's take another example. If you have an empty glass sitting in a room and the air inside it is room temperature, and then if you pour in boiling water, it heats up. Take, for instance, a person getting really angry. Or to contrast, a glass of ice would be freezing cold, like somebody who's lonely and depressed. But if you leave them alone for several hours, something extraordinarily usual happens. The hot water naturally cools off, and the ice water naturally warms up. And where do they end up? Right back at room temperature. Just like chips were all originally potatoes. So the question that I'm leaving you with is, if you're not your thoughts, what is that original potato, or what is that room temperature that is the true you beyond thoughts? That's the awareness I'm speaking of. Do you think that that awareness is aware of itself?
Wow. Do I think awareness is aware of itself? I don't think that's a question for me to answer.
Is awareness aware of itself? I don't know.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain to me again what you're meaning by that. Sorry.
Of itself. Have I thought about that? That seems pretty deep. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how to take that.
Awareness itself is aware of itself. I guess I'm kind of a little bit stuck. Like the word, the action.
I've never thought anything like awareness being aware of itself. That's going a little too deep. Whoa.
As an independent being or thing, as awareness as a sentient being, you mean?
Itself is aware of itself. Is aware of itself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure, like the knowing and the knower and the known. How is your life going to change if you have an answer to that question?
Is awareness aware of itself? No.
Awareness is being aware of oneself, but is awareness aware? I don't even know that I can wrap my head around that one.
Is awareness aware of awareness?
That's a trippy question.
Is aware of itself. Is aware of awareness.
It's interesting, being a Christian apologist, I get to talk to a lot of people who spend a lot of time, what I call, in the ivory tower, of kind of going through studies that seem to have no end in sight. And there comes a point where you reach I would say the bottom of the well. You can't dig any deeper. It's like saying, I've got to the North Pole, how further north can I go?
My first inclination is to say no, but as I'm thinking about it, I think without the spiritual person behind it, having that awareness would then become another being. So no, probably not. I mean, it's all one and the same, I believe.
I don't think it is. I think awareness is. Awareness is. And so it's not aware of itself because it simply exists.
I think that if you and I are sitting here talking and we're aware of each other's presence, we're aware that we're talking about awareness, I don't think that awareness is aware of itself because I don't think it's its own entity.
As humans, we have drifted so far away in the world, especially in America that we live in, where everything is a distraction, that if there is an awareness to awareness, we have completely lost our ability to perceive it, because now all we're about is distraction.
That's a tough one. But I'd say yeah. I'd say it has to be. I mean, there's just too much out there that there's just no way it couldn't be aware of itself. That's a good one.
And here we are. We're aware, and we're talking about awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awareness is definitely full circle.
Or is awareness aware of itself beyond thought?
I think, yes, well, it's my subjective perception that I'm aware of. I can be aware of awareness. I mean, I'm often not, because you're just too busy, you know. But at other times, yeah, you stop. I mean, that's why we all stop doing what we're doing and kind of become aware that we're doing what we're doing. And that's something that we can do. And it's very important to do that.
I think awareness is aware of itself. I think that I think there's a universal consciousness that's aware of itself. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. To be truly aware, you said it all right there. I mean, but I don't think it's something people are thinking about.
I do believe that awareness is aware of itself. I look at it in a different way, obviously, than, say, a scientific type of a way, because I look at it more so as spiritual guides or God or our loved ones who tend to be on the other side.
Do you think awareness is aware of awareness?
Yes. We say it's God consciousness to give an idea, but awareness is aware of itself, and it is as it is.
This one consciousness, this one life, this field of awareness is now learning to become aware of itself through the human experience.
Well, it would have to be aware of itself, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see the changes.
Is aware of itself.
Yes. I think it's more aware of itself than we are aware of it.
When you forget the self, then there's only this, what you call awareness. That's not someone is being aware, but it's awareness itself, manifesting itself.
Maybe that's why we're here. It's just awareness, having fun, enjoying itself.
The awareness itself is the experience. It's very deep.
So the basics could be a thought appears in consciousness, and that which is aware of the thought. If you didn't pay attention to the thought and you just paid attention to the awareness of the thought, that's the beginnings of self-realization.
It is. You are not caught by the thoughts. You are not identifying yourself with a thought which takes you away from this awareness of who you are. Because you invest, this consciousness become invested in the thought itself.
Remember back at the very beginning of the movie when we were asking little Ashley if her sister Nicole has a sister. Does Nicole have a sister? And she was saying no. This is because Ashley was not yet able to step out of her own shoes and look back at herself as a separate individual. This is literally the exact same paradigm for an adult who is completely identified with thought and is not quite yet able to step outside of thought and simply be aware of awareness itself.
And you keep probing into the questioner of the self, the questioner of the mind. And so, yeah, awareness has awareness of itself. And that's the secret of all secrets. You get into that, and then you start getting into the truth and the essence of who we really are and how special we really are. You know, this is the old joke that's like, it's like dealing with post-self-realization depression. Once you start to wake up, then you start looking at your friends saying, hey, come on. And you realize how asleep people are and how most people are walking around in this zombie-like trance, and you suddenly realize that either you've gone crazy or everyone else is crazy. The world is crazy. So the reason why when you become a monk, you get into these reductionist strategies is to pull away your association with all of these external objects and these things that you think are so important to you, that help bolster this identity that you need in order to survive in this thing called reality, which is so scary. It's not that there isn't a profound sense of individuality that's found. It's just that the person you think you are isn't it.
Yeah, truly, if you are aware who you are, truly who you are, that's very high stages of awareness you achieved. You understood really who you are. And even at that moment, you really understood the real nature of emptiness. What is exactly the emptiness?
One of the strongest notions we have is a sense of being apart from, a part of. These are strong feelings in the mind. But this is not so for awareness. You cannot be a part of awareness. You cannot be apart from awareness. The inquiry is revealing that you cannot be anything other than the awareness itself. There's no one to believe in awareness. You can only be awareness. You cannot become awareness. You already are the awareness. But because consciousness is inside this body also, and consciousness is also the child of awareness, it's the form of awareness. So awareness experiences itself with the assistance of consciousness and the body. And you feel the sense I am. I am actually is the Christian name of awareness.
If I am not my thoughts, and I am not my name, then I can't be my loss, my dreams, my past, future, or fame. Because how could it be that I am anything that I am aware of? Could it possibly be that all we are is awareness itself?